Hello, everybody. This is the podcast. We talk to everyday people with your not so everyday questions. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Friday, the show where we dive into the stories and experiences from people from all walks of life. Today, we're talking all about love, loss, and new beginnings with relationship coach Shon. He helps people heal from divorce and prepares for healthy, lasting relationships, whether you're going through a breakup or considering remarriage or just want new relationships. This episode's for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Shon.
Hey, how you doing, Matthew? Thanks for inviting me, man. This is definitely an honor. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. And for the listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work yet, could you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do and why you do it?
Yes, for sure. Exactly everything what you said. I mean, I prepare those who desire to marry, especially if it's their second time around. I kind of give that short intro, because I do believe sometimes when you get married for the first time, opposed to remarrying, it's a different kind of mindset. I help prepare you, especially for the second time around, and what that looks like to actually love again and to find yourself after divorce. And so I've been doing this for since probably about 12 years now. But I've been through a divorce myself. I was doing relationship coaching for a long time, just doing some marriage classes at our church. The reason I love this is because I just feel like this has always been my calling. I grew up in a broken home, so I know what it's like to, grow up in a single parent home and not have the whole family intact and how that can play on your life. So I'm definitely an advocate for healthy marriages.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into this really deep into here. I mean, I love the topic is I love what you do as a whole. I mean, you're doing a great thing for the community out there. I mean, I know healing takes time, but knowing where to start is makes a huge difference. I mean, what's the first step to healing from after a divorce?
hmm I think the very important thing, Matthew, a lot of people miss is understanding who you are after a divorce. Because I know a lot of times we talk about healing, heal, heal. Yeah, and I get it. That's very important in therapy and journaling, very important tools. But you have to take the time to find yourself. And if not, you can easily take that past hurt and bring it into a new marriage. And that's why the divorce rates are, I believe, 67% in second marriages. And then it's 73%, I believe, for third marriages, third divorces. So the numbers, they climb. And a lot of times people go wrong is because they never really took the time to look at them. They think it was that person opposed to looking on the inside.
Yeah, I mean, heartbreak is tough. I mean, but are there any ways to process and move forward? I mean, how can someone deal with an emotional pain of a breakup?
Well, one of the ways that you can heal faster is recognizing where you went wrong. I think that's a huge component because a lot of times we go into therapy and we talk about that other person, but we have to look at where we went wrong. And when we can own up to that, I believe that healing journey, it expedites the process because you can say out of your mouth, this is where I went wrong. You're acknowledging these things. And that's not discrediting what someone did to you because it could have been some horrible things. But for the most part, you have to look internally. And then once you do that kind of internal work where you are okay with saying that I know I'm flawed, that's when the true healing can develop.
That's a great takeaway. This is a question from someone that wanted me to ask you this actually, because you're a divorce coach. I mean, after divorce, should you let your spouse be part of your family holidays and birthday, events?
Yeah, that's a great question. My wife and I were talking about this not too long ago. Honestly, and this might sound controversial, I think it depends on the relationship you have with your ex-spouse. I think that's maybe the important part. Now, when it comes to, are you saying in the sense of like birthdays and stuff like that for the kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Okay,
the
yeah,
kids.
that's yeah. If everyone can be amicable and respectful and understand that it's not about them but the child, then I see nothing wrong with it. But if you know that someone has a short fuse or they, might be disrespectful or they still want you, but you moved on, uh, it's probably just not best. It's probably just best to give them 2 birthdays, you know? So,
No, that's a great takeaway, Sean. I mean, I appreciate you saying that because a lot of people are just they're lost after divorce. They don't know what to do, and you're shining a little bit of light in what they should do at the end of the day.
that's for sure. Yeah, because when we look at the big picture, I was talking to someone who went through a divorce the other day, and she was telling her story, and she was saying how when they talk about custody of the kids, she used terms like our children, our kids, opposed to my kids. All of a sudden, when it's my kids, that's when the defensiveness come up and the walls come up. But when you can use terms like our children, then all of a sudden it kind of eases the pain a little bit and it helps that other parent to look like, oh, that's right. We did this together. We raised this child together. So it helps the process. Just depends on how you use your word.
And what are some of the unhealthy cops that misconceptions that people should avoid after a divorce or relationship?
Can you word that a little different?
Yeah, like how people like they fall into bad habits and realizing them is like basically the first steps to change. I mean, I know a lot of people like to just fall into really bad habits after a divorce and start blaming them for everything that happened or blaming the spouse for everything that happened. I mean, what are some of the first steps they should do to not fall into those some of those bad habits?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. The first one is therapy if that's something that's available to you. I think that's definitely the first thing. And then having the awareness to know that something needs to change. Because of course when bitterness takes over, all you see is red, all you see is rage, and it's all about how you feel. Because going through a divorce, it just isn't about you. And that's what happens a lot of times. And we say negative things about our ex-spouse to our children. It's just like whoever's willing to listen to our story, and that's the unfortunate part. But if you are willing to get some therapy, have the awareness to know that I need to change. I think those are some huge steps. And if you have some friends and family who are willing to walk through you in this process, because sometimes going through a divorce can be lonely, especially for men.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, a lot of men are actually lost after a divorce or relationship. Do you believe in the law of detachment?
Uh, Refresh me on that a little bit.
Basically, the law of detachment is like you would unfollow them from all your social media accounts. You would still have their phone number and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that for connection reasons, but just not watching what they're doing day to day basis.
Oh yeah, that's huge. Yeah, please just delete the social media platforms. I mean, that's a slow burn. I mean, there's no quicker way to build up that resentment and aggressiveness if you're trying to follow them on social media and see what they're doing. It's best that you just let them live their life. Now, if you have and again, I think it varies when it comes to children because if you do have younger children, of course, you want to be able to stay in touch with them via phone and stuff like that. But if your children are, 17, 18, yeah, leave them alone. Don't no social media, none of that. Um, so I've been there even with my ex-wife. Like I don't really say anything to my ex-wife, anything. There's no reason for us to say anything because our daughter's 21. So there's no reason for us to talk about anything unless it came to something serious about our daughter. But for the most part, I don't follow her on social media, anything of that nature. So, she's living her life, I'm living mine.
No, it's a great takeaway, and for you to be have so many years of experience in this, I mean, I know it's important for a lot of people out there to heal before jumping into something new. I mean, how do you know when you're ready to truly move on?
Oh, when you want your ex to be in a good place too. I think when I know for me, I knew I was healing when I wanted the best for my ex-wife. And I realized where I went wrong too, because I was emotionally unavailable, stonewalling, all those different things, emotionally immature. So when I realized those things and when I look at her and I'm thinking, I want the best for you, that's how you know you healed. Because again, you got the people who want to stalk you on social media who aren't healed. They following you and doing all these other things. No, you want the best for them, because sometimes bitterness and resentment towards your ex, it's almost like you're waiting for them to fail. It's like you're sitting there with the bag of popcorn. And you're like, "Oh, I can't wait for them to say somebody else broke their heart, because see, I knew they was damaged." That's not healthy. There are some things still there if you holding on, if you want the worst for that person.
Some people say this, that the best revenge is success.
Totally agree. The best thing you can do for yourself is get the necessary therapy that you need. Make sure you raise your children in a healthy manner. Don't speak negative about their mom or their dad, either one. Don't speak negative. Just allow your kids to experience that other parent for themselves. You let them make that decision, not you. Because sometimes when that, bitterness and anger is still there, they love to share it to the kids, and it skews the kids' idea of that parent, which isn't healthy.
Now, Sean, you touched on this a little bit. Can you dive a little bit deeper into it? I mean, what role does self-reflection play in the healing process?
Oh, great question. I think here's the cool part about journaling. I think journaling plays a huge part. But if you even go back 6 months and look at your journal, you can see the progress that you made. Even though you might not feel like you're in a place that you want to be today, you can reflect and say, "Oh, I was immature in this area, or I was still struggling with this in a certain area." So reflection is huge. Journaling, even if you do the voice note, just to be able to talk to yourself and hear your voice over and where you were in your life. Like a lot of those things play. I think when you do the reflection, I think that plays huge.
Yeah, I mean, looking inward can help us learn from the past and grow.
Mhm. Yes, for sure. Because sometimes silence it can be the best therapy. But a lot of people don't like silence because now they have to deal with the inner part of themselves. And so for some people, silence is too loud. But there's times, I mean, I'm up at 3:45 in the morning, every morning, and or at least for the most part. And during my prayer time, is the house is quiet, and it just gives me a second to reflect, to get myself together. And then even if there's some areas that I feel like I need to tighten up, I feel like in that silence, here's an area, Sean, that you need to work on. But as long as, we're just consuming content, just busyness, we never really get the time to be honest with ourselves.
No, that's another great takeaway. And Sean, a lot of people deal with this. How can people avoid bringing past relationship traumas into like a new one?
That's definitely a process too. Again, I think a lot of that is with therapy too. And again, community. I think community is important. If you have a band of brothers, if you have a example, like at my church, I have a group of men that I'm accountable to. I do believe community is important, and having a safe space, somebody that you could talk to, even if it's not the therapist, but somebody who can really help you see you outside of yourself, if that makes sense. So having that community again, because I don't think we're ever meant to be alone. I think a lot of it is interdependence, but not independence. And so when people can see us for who we truly are and still love us, I think that helps us that much more, because sometimes condemnation can run heavy. I can't believe I did this, or I can't believe I went through a divorce. I mean, hey, I was leading uh marriage ministry at my church, and here it is. I'm going through a divorce. I felt horrible, but to be able to have people in my corner that was like, "Hey, Sean, this happened. This is not the end of your life. I think that really helped me to see myself in a better light and not so much of worried about what everybody else is saying, and I'm constantly condemning myself. So I can't get into a healthy relationship if I'm constantly condemning myself about the past. I have to learn how to put those things behind me and move forward.
Yeah, keep moving forward no matter what they say. We're gonna keep on rocking every single day. Now, why do people feel lost or without purpose after divorce?
Yeah, because they were too consumed with the other person. Now here's the here's the catchy part about this, because when you're married, you should prioritize your spouse. But it's very important too to always find that you time, what works for you, even in a marriage. You still need your individuality. But I think women struggle with this more than men. Women put their all into a marriage, and so they lose themselves. You hear countless stories of women who lost their identity in their marriage. And so it literally takes years for them to get themselves back because they like, my world was my kids and my husband. Like, that was their identity. But you have to know who you are outside of that, even in a marriage. So even with us doing something like this right now, this is me time. This is Shine Uncut. So it helps fill my individual tank when it comes to for me knowing who I am and what I enjoy doing as an individual. Thank you.
Now, what advice would you give someone who still loves their ex?
Ooh, great question. A- And I know it might sound simple. Don't get into another relationship. Uh, because sometimes, and here's the thing about serial daters. No shade to serial daters. But a lot of times when you're serial dating, you just want that adrenaline rush of meeting someone new. You just need that rush. So I think this is where a lot of those people might go wrong. I won't say those people, but that's where they get trapped because they still like their ex, but they still want that kick. They want that dopamine hit. So this is where you have to be careful. So if you're truly not over your ex, uh, it can be sticky because if your ex moved on, that's one thing. You let that go. But if both of you just separated and you kind of still talking or waters are murky, get that squared away first. Take the time to be like, is this officially over? If not, because hey, I still have feelings for you. I think it's just about a conversation and having the bravery to be okay with letting that other person make a decision for themselves, opposed to you trying to control and manipulate the situation.
No, that's a great takeaway. I'm sure a lot of listeners will resonate with that one. And I mean, trusting others starts with trusting yourself at the end of the day.
Yes. Because I realized that and I heard this from a therapist. He was talking about one way to build self-confidence is to be true to yourself, that if you told yourself you're going to do something, follow through. And that could be the smallest thing. Hey, I'm not going to smoke anymore, or I'm not, you telling yourself these things, follow through with it. I'm going to work out 3 days a week. Do that, because when you tell yourself that internally, it produces confidence in you later on, because that internal dialogue, you're actually following through with the things that you said.
Now, Sean, what are some tips for a successful like co-parenting after divorce relationship?
Mm, this is a sticky situation too, because it depends on the maturity of the parents, right? So this isn't one size fits all. It varies. Okay. So let's just look at it from a healthy co-parenting perspective, that you actually both moved on, but you both are amicable. I just think it's just a conversation. I think when you actually start a new relationship, I think it's important that you let that parent know that, okay, I'm dating somebody. I know I'm getting my child this weekend. I'm just letting you know that the person I'm dating, they have a daughter. You just got to have that conversation, because if that person isn't healthy, they might have a problem with that. I don't want somebody else around my child, that whole thing. And that's something that you don't want, because it can explode into something bad. So I just really think it's a conversation. And this is why it's important that whoever you choose to have a child with, unfortunately, sometimes you have to think about these things. Like, if this relationship don't work, can we still be amicable? But it's really just a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, raising kids after a breakup is not easy. I mean, but it can be done well. I believe that. Do you have any like stats on divorce at all? Like, what are the common stats after marriage of like how long does it usually last before people get divorced? Or, I mean, how often do people get divorced?
Yeah. Now, those stats, the average marriage, I believe, from Pew Research Center is 7 to 8 years. Uh, Divorce before getting into another relationship is like almost 2 years, which is pretty good considering. Now, what you do with those 2 years is the tail of the tape. Because are you spending that time healing and working on you, or are you just jumping right back into the dating pool and just hoping that you're just going to find somebody? They say that, what's that old saying? The best way to get over someone is to get under someone else. So some people, it just depends on how what you want your relationships to look like in the future. And maybe that 2-year time span, you can take that time to work on you, opposed to maybe jumping in a dating pool. And I know it can be challenging because you've been with this person for so long, and all of a sudden the whole world is yours now. So I believe it's a 2-year window, if that answers your question.
No, I mean it's a interesting stat, indeed. And I'm just thinking like bringing someone new into your kids' lives is a big step. I mean, how do you introduce like new parents to your children's lives?
Ooh, good question, good question. So I'll use mine for an example. Because my wife and I, we dated long distance. So one day my daughter was over, and my wife and I, my wife, who I'm married to now, we were actually like talking over Skype. So this tells you how long ago that was. Um, and so my daughter was like, who is that? But I was telling her, I was like, at the time, we just like friends. So as that time went on, I told my daughter, I was like, look, this woman right here, or the lady you saw, me and her look like we're going to head in the direction of getting together and, having a healthy relationship. Just kind of trying to walk her through it. And my daughter was upset at the time because she was like, so why didn't you and mom work out that whole thing? Because my daughter was 14 at the time. She's trying to figure things out. So I think it depends on the age of the child. If they're my wife, her son was 3 at the time when we met. 3, we just kind of like, hey, this is Mr. Sean. We just go and play catch at 3. But at 14, it took a little more explaining to my 14-year-old. But I think the reason why my daughter had so many questions was because I didn't tell her everything about the divorce and why everything happened the way it did, was because I never wanted to paint a negative picture to her mom. So I just think it depends on the age. I think if you just have those kind of real simple conversations, depending on the age, and let the child talk. If they have questions, no matter how silly the question may seem, just kind of walk through it with them, because kids, they love to ask questions. Why? Why? you know, and just keep it simple. And of course, it might not be easy because kids love structure, and they love structure and stuff like that. So when change come around, they might be a little apprehensive, and that's okay. But I just think if you could just talk to them on their level, uh, they will come around. But you have to be patient with them and not expect everything just to mix overnight.
Coach Sean, I know you touched on it, but can you dive a little bit deeper? I know kids struggle during a divorce. I mean, how can we help them feel safe?
Mhm. Well, you can get kids therapy. I think that because I got my daughter therapy, for her and to process her feelings. Um, and depending, I think if you do some like real cool stuff together first, right? I think if you, maybe take them to Dave and Buster's or just stuff like that, where it's not so much of the focus on why my mom and dad didn't work, but just kind of more like fun things. I think you could just kind of ease your way in where it's like, I just want us to be one big happy family because children deserve to be happy, as well as mom and dad. But I think if you just do simple, cool stuff that they like, I think that really helps. And then that way, when the child is older, they have those memories of, hey, I remember when we went to Dave and Buster's, because you're only setting your kids up for success when you give them those good memories.
No, I love that. And I mean, jumping back into the dating scene can be exciting, but also scary for just everyone out there. I mean, how can someone know if they're truly ready to date again?
Oh, I think if their heart is open, I think if they're had to have this anticipation and this excitement, and not only so much of that, but willing to give, not so much of take. Because
Okay.
a lot of times we get back into relationships, and even when I'm doing coaching, if I hear more people saying me, I'm like, we have to backtrack some because relationships aren't always about you. It's about us. When we use those words, remember we talked about the words earlier. When we use words like us, it shows that we're looking at a bigger picture. We're looking at something that's bigger than us. So if that person is coming in willing to, and I say serve, and I use that term lightly, serve. If you're willing to give to that other person, I think those who have an open heart and willing to give, I think those are people who are willing to get into a healthy relationship. If that other person wants to serve as well, and not so much of the me, me, me. Got to be two people that's willing to come together.
Yeah, Coach Sean, you've been in this field for so long, you have such knowledge. I mean, what are some red flags to watch for in a new relationship after a divorce?
Oh. Going on a date and all that person talks about is the ex. That's huge. And they might say things like, "No, but I'm over it." But I do want to say, and then it just becomes this long scroll of things that the ex has done wrong, and at the end of the night, they're just scrolling, they just rolling the scroll, and that's a huge red flag, right? And I think it's best that if that person want to talk about their ex, let them talk about it and see how long they actually talk about it. Don't be rude and be like, oh, I can't, come get the check, that whole thing. No, let them talk it out. So that way, at least at the end of the date, you can walk away positively knowing that, you know what, this is not the right person for me because I let them talk and all they talked about was their ex. Or they always take the victim mentality. It's woe is me. It's just everything is the world is falling, the sky is falling. Those are huge red flags. Very big flags, but you'll be surprised how many people actually does this on dates unconsciously.
Now, Coach Sean, I mean, on the other hand, I mean, what are some green flags to show a relationship has like a healthy potential?
That's good. That's good. Again, like I said, I think when we talk about when we talk about building for the future, when we talk about being interested in that other person, not so much of just like this quiz, like, are they checking the boxes, but are you genuinely interested in this person? And if they are, I think that's a huge red flag. And it really works when you both can align, from your core values, different things of that. Once those come into play, I think that creates sparks. That creates, I need to take this relationship further because we talking about future goals. We're talking about building together. And then on top of that, I'm talking about how I can help you. It's not just about my goals and dreams. I remember the other day I was talking to my wife and I was talking about all the goals and dreams that I had, personal goals and accomplishments, but I realized I had to catch myself and what do you want? What does that look like for you? Because there was a time when she would talk to me and say, You just talk about just everything you want. I don't think you took time to see what I wanted. I was like, oh, you know what? I had to roll that back. So I think if you're willing to invest in that other person, and it's not everything about you, but we just look out for each other. I think those play huge into developing a healthy relationship.
I mean, like starting fresh is an opportunity, and I mean, how do you build a strong foundation in a new relationship?
It depends on what are your core values. It depends on what you value the most. Um, as a Christian, right? For me, I think that's the foundation, right? So I think that's something that I need entering a relationship. For other people, it might look different. It just depends on what are your core values. Um, I'm huge on integrity. Do you have integrity? One thing I love about my wife is she love helping people who can't do anything for her in return. So to me, that's huge because I'm like, if I give you 70% of myself, I only can imagine the return on investment because your heart is so big for people that they can't do nothing for you in return. So I just think it depends on your core values, and when you take the time to look at those core values, and if they align with somebody else, that's when you can start to build that foundation brick by brick.
Coach Sean, I mean, what are some of the best ways to communicate boundaries in with a new partner?
I know I know this might sound not strange but different. I always tell people read books together. I think this is huge, especially if you love to read, right? So there's a book called Boundaries. There's actually two. There's an older version by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend called Boundaries. This is an older version, but great book. And then there's another book on boundaries by a lady named Nedra Tawwab. I would be interested. Matter of fact, my wife and I we reading that book. We haven't read it in a couple weeks, but we're reading it. Uh, Take the time to say, "Hey, let's read this book together on boundaries. Well, how do you feel about that?" And then that way you can really see what someone consider a boundary. Because I think people take words and definitions different. Because like you asking me about boundaries, for some people, boundaries mean if you don't agree with me, I cut you off. For some people, boundaries might mean I just need you to respect my time. So I think it varies. I think you have to really get to the root of how would you define a boundary, and then we can move accordingly. But those two books, I suggest that to anybody because when you can get on the same page about reading a book, pun intended, I do think it creates deeper conversations.
No, deeper conversation and being transparent with each other. I mean, that is some keys to a strong relationships. And I mean, Coach Sean, I mean, love is great, but planning for the future is just as important. I mean, what are some of the key things to like discuss before getting remarried?
Oh, getting remarried. Yeah. Here's the thing. Uh, and I talk to my clients about this. Like, who are you? And that's to me, that's always the first question. Who are you now? When you first married to compare to who you are today, going through a divorce, because you could have spent your whole life trying to please this person, lose yourself, and now you're out of the marriage and you're just a clone of the person you were married to. So I think when you are okay with saying this is who I am now, totally unapologetic, this is who I am, take it or leave it, I think that's when you can find a person for you. When you can say this is who I am now. But a lot of times people try to fit into these boxes of trying to be somebody to please somebody to be with that person because they said, I like this in a person. I like that in a person. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I can be that when it's really not you. So I think when you are yourself unapologetically, you can find the right person and remarriage, you can find that right person for you and that person will love you for who you are because to me, love is I can love you unconditional. I can love you flaws and all, you know? So I think you just have to be your authentic self. I think that's the first step.
Now, being authentic is probably one of the keys to a very key successful life. And Coach Sean, I mean, how do you handle like negative opinions from family and friends about a new relationship?
Oh, great question. These are some great questions. I think you just have to be honest with them and let them know where you stand. And that comes with knowing who you are. When you know who you are, you can say, I know, you might not like this person, vice versa. Now, I will say there's a kind of a catch to this because sometimes when you got on a rose-colored glasses, they can see stuff that you can't. So that's where you have to be careful, especially for those who have your best interest, right? Um, they might want to, hey, I just see a couple of things that you might not see, and you just giggly, you happy, But I think if you are honest about who you are, who you become now, and if your family can even accept the new you, because you got to have that confidence in yourself. And so when family can respect who you are as an individual, the new version of you, I think that can be something that, they got to respect it. And those who really love you, they're gonna roll with you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, loving yourself first changes the way you attract and build relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And for some people it's scary, right? For some people it's like, can everybody accept the real me or the new me? And so sometimes people wrestle with that because sometimes people like the old version of you, right? Some people are a little more content with the old version of you. And when you are a new person, that can sometimes scare people off. And I'm talking friends and family. But you got to have that confidence in knowing who you are. I tell people all the time that one of the biggest reasons for divorce is identity, not knowing who you are. You're just lost. You just doing whatever this person wants, but you gotta know who you are. When you have that identity, you can stand firm in that, and people will respect it.
No, I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge. And Coach Sean, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of men have this problem out there. I mean, how do you handle loneliness after a divorce?
And it's so hard for men. This is actually a tough question, but I will say over the years, I have seen men who will open their heart. They just need to know if you are a safe space for them. I tell people all the time the best way to get to know someone is to lead through vulnerability. So if I'm talking to a guy and he's, we kind of just shooting the breeze or whatever, I'll say something to him that might be somewhat vulnerable. And all of a sudden the lever switches because all of a sudden he's like, oh, you're human. Like I took off the Superman cape. Matthew, you would be surprised at how many men, when my wife and I are doing vending events, we have a intimacy card deck for marriage, right? Questions, for husbands and wives and even dating, right? So when I showed them this deck for, the men, they fall in love. They're like, "Oh, I'm buying that." And I tell them how more intimate you can be with your spouse by asking these questions that you might not have known because you never asked the question. And men will talk to you all day. So I think sometimes men, they just need to know he's human just like I am. And when you can get those kind of men, and that's when you can really build lives with other men where they like, you got a minute? I need to talk to you. That's where the mentorship come in.
No, I love that because I mean, a lot of men are lost out there. They don't know actually what questions to ask, the opposite sex. And
Yeah.
it's tough for a lot of men out there. I know that. I mean, why do people repeat the same relationship mistakes though?
Yeah. I was just talking about this the other day. Most people live on autopilot. And the numbers are staggering. I think I was reading an article from Forbes or something. I can't remember. I think it was Forbes. Matter of fact, I think it's in my ebook. And it talks about how many people live on autopilot that even some parents might forget their kids in the car going to the grocery store because they're so consumed with just every day. They just on autopilot. They're not thinking. So when you're dating, you used to being you. It's comfortable. It gives you the warm fuzzy feelings, right? Even if it's to your own detriment. But autopilot gets a lot of people tripped up, opposed to having the awareness to say, you know what? Always chasing my type never resulted in anything good. Maybe I need to try something different. It just takes another level of awareness, but autopilot keeps people in bad relationships.
Yeah, a lot of people are in the autopilot and they got to get themselves in a different environment at the end of the day, and maybe they'll find a different type of person out there, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Be willing to expand. Be willing to think a little different. Think outside of the box because what you always done will always get you what you got. You have to be willing to do some things that you've never done before to get different results. My old mentor, he used to tell me, he used to say, "Hey, Sean, so how is that working for you?" And I'll be like, "It's not." And he's like, "So what you gonna do different?" And he'll leave it at that. And I will go home like, not on autopilot. Now I gotta think because he said something to me that made me want to renew my mind and think different.
No, I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge here, Coach Sean. I mean, what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from coaching people?
Great question. I think you gotta be patient. I think you have to be willing to. Who are you willing to be patient with? Of course, some people deserve a little more time. Some people, you got to have that cutoff point. There's a book I think by Dr. John Townsend. I think it was him. He has a book called Necessary Endings, where some things you just need to end. So it's just about patience. I mean, I've talked to clients. I worked with clients for months, and they will say the same stuff over and over and over again. And we had these same conversations, and I'm trying to get them to think different. And I realized, Sean, you have to be patient with them because we live in a microwave society. We live in an Amazon society. And I guess I'm telling my age, when we were growing up, if something broke, we actually fixed it. Now you can get it overnight on Amazon the next day. So we look at people the same way. It's like, oh, I'll just dispose of you and I'll have a new you tomorrow morning. So we have to have patience and grace for people.
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. And Coach, Sean, I know a lot of people out there are very picky in their relationships. I mean, how can someone create a healthy relationship standards without being too picky?
Oh. You have to know what you like, and you have to be honest enough with yourself. And you also have to are you okay with being with somebody that's flawed? Because, and I tell my single people this all the time. The person you choose is beautifully broken, just like you. It just depends on what you're willing to put up with. And that looks different for different people. Because for some odd reason, we think we got it all together and we're going to find this perfect person. And I'm like, if this person is perfect, chances are they're not going to want you if they're perfect, right? Uh, so I just think you have to know your pros and your cons when you're talking to somebody. Okay, well, maybe they have two kids or, and I don't want anybody with kids. Like, all these different little variables. You just have to look at your own list and be honest about what you like and what you dislike, what you can do with and what you can do without. I think the math is simple. The problem is when we keep on the rose-colored glasses and we think we can deal with something, but we really can't. We just want to be with that person. Oh, sure, I can get over that, but you still got on the rose-colored glasses. So you have to be honest with yourself and take some time to write some stuff down. Do your pros and cons list. It sounds simple, but it will help you long term.
I mean, I know a lot of people rush into love, and it can lead into the same mistakes. I mean, why do some people jump into relationships too quick after divorce?
Well, it looks different for men and women, right? Women, statistically, women aren't quick to get back into a marriage. Women is like, I'm good. I had 2 kids. I had my husband and my son, right? So women, they will take their time. Men, I think men like the companionship. I think when men realize that, oh, she used to set my doctor's appointments for me. Oh, she was cooking every day. I didn't have to worry about my meals, or, she was taking care of the kids. So men, they get used to that. And so once they get out of a marriage and they're on their own, they like, I gotta wash my clothes too. you know? So I think for men, we get into marriages because I know I jumped right back into marriage for me too. I did. I love the compatibility and being with somebody. I understand the value of a woman. That's not saying I can't do things on my own, but there's just something about when you're with the right woman who can help you become better. She can help you see your blind spots, things that you couldn't see. So for men, I think they like the compatibility. I think they like the coziness of being with the woman, laid up next to a woman at night. I think they like that. But again, with women, it's different. So it just depends, man or woman. Women like, nah, I'm good. Men, they want the compatibility. They want that partnership.
No, that's so true. And then on the other hand, I know for men especially, rejection can be tough. I mean, how do you handle rejection when dating after divorce?
Now this is this could be challenging too, because I think a lot of it depends on your age range. I think it depends on age, and I think it depends on even your upbringing, right? Um, and I'm going somewhere with this, but like even for my kids are spoiled, right? They get everything. But sometimes I just tell them no just because I said no. And so when we get to raise our kids to knowing that everything won't go your way, when they do get married, or even if they do go through a divorce, they're like, you know what? I'm okay. I've heard no before. I've been rejected. And I even tell younger guys, it's okay to hear a woman tell you no and you not fly off the handle and respond. Like that's okay. But when we can't handle rejection, that says a lot about ourselves. That says we don't see the value in ourselves, that our value is based on somebody who we think would be a good fit for us. So we have to be careful with that. So you'll find out a lot about a person, um, their comfortability with themselves and their confidence based on the rejection.
Yeah, Coach Sean, with all your years of experience, what good communication can make or break a relationship. What are some of the best ways to communicate with your partner during a tough time?
Oh, I'm reading this book called The Mindful Marriage. And in the book, they have what is it called? It's like a resolution chart, right? It's like how do we come up with standing together when we disagreeing about something, right? So I think a lot of times when we come and we can present the way we feel and don't belittle that other person's feelings or their concerns, I think that's when you can come up with a good key to communication and even resolving conflict and being honest about how you feel. Never belittle their feelings, because your feelings are your feelings. And so I think when you feel like you're in a safe environment, it's easier to come up with an answer to a problem. But when you don't feel like your feelings are being validated, or you don't feel safe, or they invalidate your feelings, there's always going to be trouble because they're like, I don't trust you. I think everything is about you. It's never about us. And like we said before, it's about us, right? If we use that kind of verbiage for us, then that other person feels safe. But you got to have the communication, validate their feelings, say how you feel, and come up with a solution that's going to work for us, not for you, not for me, but us.
No, that's a great takeaway indeed. And I know a lot of people struggle with this, Coach Sean. I mean, trust is hard to rebuild. How could someone trust again after being betrayed?
Whew, yeah, now this is going to be, yeah, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And so, example, if you're the offender, you stepped out of the relationship, you did something that you shouldn't have been doing. To build that trust, you have to let this person know where you are at all times. Constant communication. I mean, navigation on your phone, not the navigation, but location. Right? I'm here. I'm leaving the grocery store. You have to be willing to put in the work. Now, the person who was offended, you have to be mature enough to let that person go through their process and be okay with that person telling you everything that they have going on, but don't use it as a ball and chain, right? As a way of control. Now, if you're going to take them back fully. So if there has been some mistrust, if you feel like if that was a violation, leave the relationship. I'd rather for you to leave a relationship than to hold somebody hostage to something that happened 3, 4 years ago. Now, the only thing about that is there's so much to this. The only thing about it is you have to be you can't tell the person who was offended, get over it. It happened. All right, it happened. When you still tripping out over this, or you still no, they're still processing their feelings. So it can be really sticky if you're willing to accept that person back after some kind of violation, misuse of trust. If you're gonna take them back, take the whole person back and work through that process. But if not, it's okay to end a relationship if that's something that you feel like you can't take that person back.
Now, what advice would you give to someone struggling with like self-worth after a divorce?
Self-worth. I think it could look different for different people. Some people are big on affirmations, right? I think some people, every morning they get up, hey, I'm strong, I'm brave, I'm committed, I'm, having those affirmations. But you got to get around people who will celebrate you and not tolerate you. People who can always say positive things about you, or not always, but you know that if you go around this person, they have something positive to say about you. Or even this, I can't remember the book it was. But anyway, they were talking about how take three of the closest people that you know and say all the great traits about you. So, me and Matthew, okay, we cool. So if you kind of feeling lost or whatever, hey Sean, can you tell me three great traits that stand out about me? I can give you those things and you can write them down. Three different people tell you these different things, write them down, and then you can tell yourself that every morning because not only are you saying it, but you're hearing it from three close people to you, which means the world, right? So I think that's how you can build your self-esteem.
No, I love that. And if you're talking to someone and they're truly listening to you, that's a real friend. If they're just trying to change the subject, that's not a true friend.
So true. So true. Again, you got to get around people who will celebrate you and not tolerate you because life is short and the words that people speak have a huge impact on you. Is you got to be careful what you put in your ear. So if you got people who's going to champion you and even celebrate the small victories, those are the people you treat and you never mistrust or
Now,
mistreat.
no, that's so strong, Coach Sean. And if someone is afraid of dating again, what would you tell them?
If you want to love again, it's okay. I've seen too many people are afraid to say publicly, "I want to be married" or "I want to be remarried." They'll tell you in the DMs or they'll tell you in a coaching session, but in a public space, a lot of people would rather take the negative route. I don't need nobody. I'm good. I don't. No, be honest. If that's what you want, that's what you want, and don't let anybody take that away from you. And so a lot of times people miss out on great people because they're saying these things on social media about how they don't need anyone. So that negative energy you putting out there, they like, oh, I ain't gonna talk to you anyway. You don't need anybody. Okay. So you're actually doing yourself a disservice by telling yourself these lies when actually you really want to be loved again. And that's okay. That right person will find you because you never know who's watching.
Uh, I mean, what's one thing everyone should know about love and relationships, in your opinion, Coach Shon?
That people can change. Now, the catch to that is you're never really in between. You're either, as John Maxwell say, you're either progressing or you're regressing. You're never really on the same area. And if so, it's for a very short time and then boom, because Matthew at 16 is different than Matthew at 19. So you have to be, if you're going to get into a relationship with someone, you have to be you got to be so in tune with this person because they are always changing. Do the checkups. Hey, how are you doing? Do a 90-day check-in. How you feeling? I just want to know how's our relationship doing. Are we good right now? And they might be like, we're not. I just haven't had time to tell you. Boom. Now you can have a conversation to fix it. So people can change, either, progressing or regress.
Yeah, being transparent is key in a relationship. And where can people connect with you, Coach Shon, and learn more? Everything will be in the description down below, by the way.
For sure. Well, thanks again, Matthew, for having me. Definitely appreciate this opportunity. You can find my website at scarytoremarry.com. Everything is Scary to Remarry. If you just look that up online anywhere, I'll pop up on all social media platforms, YouTube, all that good stuff. But scarytoremarry.com.
Shon, you've definitely given us a lot to think about. I mean, thank you for sharing your journey with us and your beliefs and everything you're going towards. I'm excited to see what your future holds. And thank you again for being on the podcast.
For sure. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, I know the listeners got a lot of value out of this. I appreciate you being here. And for the listeners, go follow him and go support him and what he's going towards. And if you need help, go to the description down below and hit his link. And stay tuned for more amazing stories like this on Every Day is Friday podcast 365. Until next time, everybody, I appreciate you.